Hello, everybody, and welcome back to that FPL show. It's Game Week 9 review time. I'm joined by the boys, as always, Rod and Danny. How you doing, boys?
I've been better. Unfortunately, Villa have been non-existent for the last couple of weeks, but it's nice to be back talking football with you boys.
Yeah, for me, it's mixed feelings. I'm happy to be back after missing out last week, but going off the results on the weekend, I'm not very happy. So enjoying things and ready to talk about the football, though, nonetheless.
Okay, way to bring down the mood, guys. Let's talk fantasy to start off with, boys, anyway. I've had an absolutely banging week. How have you boys done? Let's start with Rod.
I've done well, not quite as well as you, but I did score 30 above the average, scoring 94. And, of course, it was up until the Mo Salah game. I was on an average score, and I was like, if Salah doesn't do anything here, then it could be looking at a red arrow for my overall ranking. But come off the hour, come off the man, come off the 48 points for Mo Salah. So that has taken me up to 43k in the world, and we are loving life inside the top 50k. How about you, Danny? How did you do?
Yeah, Danny, who do you captain this week?
It's a bit of a running theme that I've been having shit weeks and all, but yeah, this week was a shitter as well, really. I went for the ballsy move of captaining Vardy at the last minute, and it backfired completely. My vice captain, Salah, I should have captained him, and basically that really determined what my week was going to be, as everyone else seemed to captain Salah. He scored the hat-trick. So, yeah, I've got like 20, 30 points less than everyone else in our personal league. It's not great, really. A few of my players didn't play. It's just I really need to start getting some points under the ball, otherwise I'm going to fall behind.
You're in last place in our fantasy league.
But
Rod,
it's still recoverable. 40 points is,
But obviously you're in last place at the moment, Danny. Rod is still holding firm at the top of the table, but I'm closing the gap. I'm up into third now. I've had an absolutely banging week. I got 100 points. I was tossing and turning at night. My conscience was, really eating up at me because I ended up captaining Mo Salah on the Thursday. Going into Friday, I was looking forward to the Villa game. I didn't have anyone in it though, so I was kind of like, let's get Saturday coming round and see how everyone's doing. I started off okay. I had a few people getting decent points. Livramento getting the goal for Southampton. That was really banging for me, getting 9 points to the back. I ended up getting a 100-point game week though. It all came down to the Sunday. Antonio bagged a goal, which gave West Ham the win. That was a solid 7 points for me. And I had Trent and Robertson at the back, capping off a really good defensive week. So I had Trent, Livramento and Robertson with Sanchez in goal, who made a couple saves to get himself up to 4 points. But Mo Salah, I captained him. It did eat up at me for doing it. I felt a bit guilty. But, Ollie's let me down. So I just helped myself to the points, and I'm up into third place. I'm feeling very comfortable. Rod, was there any other standout players in your squad other than Mo Salah?
I think that on my second highest scorer was Trent, and for me, Trent's been essential on FPL for the last 3-4 years. So scoring 10 against Man United is something I'll definitely take, and I think he had a very unlucky shot where De Gea made a brilliant save, meaning he could have shot up onto 15, 16 points potentially. But Trent, Livramento, Rudiger and Salah were my main players, and I'll take the 94 points. It's such a shame I didn't manage to creep into that 3-digit figure, but plenty of other game weeks, and I've already nailed one 3-digit figure, and nice for you to get your first, Jack.
Yeah, it's like when you're at the gym and you're trying to get the full plate gang, isn't it? When you're building up the strength and you first start going, you're trying to get to that 100 kg bench press. But when you do it, then you're part of the gang for life, Rod. And thankfully, I'm part of the triple digit, the 100 points scored this week. I'm very happy. Danny, obviously, we know you captained Salah, but who else? Was there anyone who... no, you captained Vardy, beg my pardon. But did anyone else in your team stick out for you at all?
Martinez, he made a lot of saves for Villa in their battering, which we'll get onto last Friday. He got 10 points. Rudiger with the clean sheet in the 7-0 Chelsea win against Norwich was also another 9 points. So those were my other two standout players, really.
Did anyone let you down this week in particular, other than Vardy?
Yeah, Diaz not getting the clean sheet. I would say Greenwood drawing blank again, but he did. He's a United player, so I should have been expecting it. And basically it was a lot of my players not being picked by their managers. So yeah.
For you, Rod, was there any underperformers?
I think Rafinha, looking at him, they were playing Wolves. I was feeling tasty. I was like, hey, this is a game where he could score a double-digit haul, but he came off on the 53rd minute, which kind of summed up my Saturday, where it was a below-par performance. Cancelo and Diaz scoring a combined total of 3, Foster scoring 1. It wasn't a great Saturday, and then obviously Sunday rolled around, and Salah, Trent, Antonio scoring me those big points. So it was a game of two halves.
Yeah, 100%. And I would say the same about Rafinha for me. Only getting the single point, very disappointed in him. I wasn't actually keeping up to date with the games, and I went down for some lunch at the end of a final score on BBC, and it said that Leeds have a penalty, and I was going, go on, Rafinha. I didn't even know he wasn't on the pitch at the time. And it said Rodrigo, and my heart just sank. I was hoping he's going to take it. But in terms of this game week, when you look at the Kings of Game Week 9, some really different players out there this week. You're looking at the likes of Cornet, King and Dennis, Mount and Chilwell as well. They had some big weeks. It was a really interesting week because of, obviously, I think most people were looking at that Norwich-Chelsea game and thinking, we probably should be looking at a captain from this game. But with Lukaku and Werner missing, it was about who were you going to bring in from that Chelsea team. I couldn't decide because I didn't really know who was going to play or whatnot. So I actually missed out on the Chelsea players. But in terms of some of the big scorers, I got to look at Cornet. I think he's been doing pretty well for Burnley. It's been quite surprising, Rod.
I think with Cornet, it was a weird signing because I think that market of player is completely opposite to what Burnley are usually in for. So for him to sign was a bit of an eye-opener. And then, since he's played, he's always done really well. He bagged a couple goals on the weekend. Obviously, before that, he did have an injury, but he also scored before his injury. So he has been quite an outstanding player for Burnley and a bit more of an unorthodox player in the Sean Dyche style, but nevertheless effective.
Yeah, and for $6 million, I think going forward, he might be a potential, not necessarily going to be in your starting 11, but maybe someone off the bench because he is starting to perform for Burnley. The other players I really want to highlight, Danny, and talk to you about is, I know you're a big fan of this guy, Dennis, Vamenis and Joshua King. Obviously, the Tinker Man came back this week, and Dennis and King, some big performances.
Yeah, Dennis, I think might be one of the most underrated signings so far in the Premier League. I know Watford have really struggled so far, but they got that big win against Everton this weekend, and he was amongst the goals again. And Joshua King, really, but I don't know, that Joshua King performance, it was a bit of a freak sort of performance, getting all those goals. I don't know if he's someone to really look out for on FPL long term. It really depends on how Watford go under Ranieri, in my opinion, because last season he barely did anything. Of course, he was ignored by his manager. What do you think about these two gents, Rod?
I mean, with Watford, I thought they were going to get absolutely battered. Away to Everton, it's not an easy place to go and get a result. But Josh King, I think who played a combined total of about 70 minutes for Everton, somehow managed a hat-trick, and him and Dennis up front were looking the part, and Pickford to concede 5 is a bit of a shock, really, considering how good his Euros was. He had a good start of the season as well. So they are two players to keep an eye on, but like you said, they are Watford at the end of the day, and they're not something who are on the front of my mind, but they are some players who could enable other players with them only costing under 7 million.
I just wanted to talk to you boys about injuries and, dealing with them. I think Lukaku is a player that most people want to get into their team. And it's so unfortunate at the time of his injury because of Chelsea's easy run of forms. Is there any other players, Rod, who you've really been looking to get in, but because of injuries, you're not being able to get him at the moment?
I mean, yeah, you're right. I think had Lukaku been fit this week, we would have seen a bit more of a split between him and Salah captaincy-wise, and that could obviously affected rankings differently. So I was literally looking at Lukaku, going to captain him this week because of that game against Norwich. So yeah, Lukaku is one. And now that he's come back and he looks to hopefully be fit, I've got my eyes on Leon Bailey for the future. With him obviously coming back from injury against Arsenal, playing 30 minutes, once again getting an assist, which is, I think he must have played about 90 minutes of football in total, not starting one yet. And he's got 1 goal and 3 assists. So he's definitely on my radar, but that all depends on Villa's performance in the next weeks.
Yeah, and the one guy who's been on my radar now for a while, but unfortunately due to injury, it's the Aldi Yaya Toure, Abdoulaye Doucouré. We were talking about him the other week, and he's going to be out for a while. And obviously, just before we get into the fixtures, Everton had a bit of a stinker this week, and I think they really miss him. He's a hell of a player, and for fantasy this year so far, he's picked up quite a few points. He's looked very deadly going forward in the Everton midfield, giving us the Yaya Toure vibes, as I said before. Other players, is there anybody you've been missing, Danny?
It's not so much that I've been missing, it's just because of his team that he's been, as a result, underperforming because of his team, and that's Son. I think Son is a player to keep an eye on, really. If Spurs really do sort themselves out, I feel like Son has scored an okay amount of goals so far, but if you think about past FPL seasons, he has been one of the biggest scoring players in terms of points. So I think maybe if he can get into form, he is one of those players that he's been very under the radar in the early season that we will see a lot of people putting back into their teams.
Yeah, just one more injury watch, guys, is DCL. I think when he comes back, I think Everton are in a bit of bad form at the moment, but when he comes back, I think he's going to be someone to definitely look for in FPL. Right, Rod, it's time for your segment of the show. It is Wet Wipe and Shithouse of the week. Who have you gone for?
I think, obviously, in Wet Wipe, there was a lot of candidates, but for me, it does have to go to Mr. Solskjaer with an absolutely shambolic team, organisation, non-existent, and unfortunately, they were not united, and they looked like a group of individuals on the pitch, and that ultimately comes down to the manager. So, Ollie, this award goes to you for that 5-0 shambolic team you put out. But in regards to Shithouse, I am going to have to stay in that game, and I'm going to have to give it to the Liverpool fan who was in the United end. And I'm not sure if any of the viewers have seen the videos circulating around Twitter, but there was a Liverpool fan in the United end, and he was getting escorted out by the steward, I think, towards the end of the game. And from either side of him, he was getting battered by United fans. So fair play, shithousery from him.
Yeah, and we love to see that shithousery, obviously. Ollie, it doesn't look like you're going to win much this year, if anything at all. But at least he can say, Rod, that he got that FPL show Wet Wipe of the Week award. And to that Liverpool fan showing true shithousery, I think there was a couple other people in the running for it. I think, if it went better for United, you could have probably said Cristiano Ronaldo for kicking the shit out of Curtis Jones. I think you could have maybe had a look at Christian Romero for getting down and dirty with, who was it? Who did they play again? Spurs. West Ham. Oh, Fornals, wasn't it? He got down and dirty with Fornals, told him what he thought of him. But obviously the results didn't go his way, so congratulations to the Liverpool fan who looked like he might have been in... I think he might have been in the Stretford End, I'm not too sure. He's brave if he fucking was. Shout of the week goes to him. But now it's time to have a look at some of the results, talk through some of the players who did really well in those games. Obviously, we start on the Friday, Rod, and unfortunately it's the Arsenal against Villa game. 3-1, Arsenal won at the end of the day. How do you feel?
Oh, mate, like I said, I think on last week's show, that Palace Arsenal game, Arsenal were poor and it set them up to beat us 3-0, and I was one goal off. The same as the Spurs game where we come off the back of the United game winning, and I was like, Spurs will probably beat us, and they did. It's just, we're so inconsistent, and it just makes me rage because we've got a good team, and I just don't think the tactics are there. They're just not consistent, and to persist with this 5-back formation when Matt Targett isn't a wing-back, it just does not work. And I don't think you can just adjust it to play Matty Cash wing-back because he's a good attacker, but you need the team to work like that. And it annoys me because for me, it wasn't a penalty, but I'm not even shocked it was given. And at 2-0, you go at the Emirates at half-time, the game is pretty much over. And guess what? Shock. We changed to a 4-back and we look so much better. The introduction of Leon Bailey, we were beginning to pass it around. We got a goal and we looked a much better team. And shock that Emily Smith-Rowe turned into prime Kaká. Ramsdale, prime Neuer. So I'm not even shocked, but I am beginning to question the tactics and how Dean Smith can consistently persevere with this 5-back formation when it has worked in games, but if it's clearly not working, you change it. Like that first half, we couldn't pass it. Like I've never seen us so. We looked shell-shocked, and Arsenal they came at us, but we just couldn't control the game at any point, and we need to go back to this 4-back formation. Some games, if it looks like a 5-back formation that could work, then do that. But if not, you shouldn't be afraid to change it. And that's what separates the good managers from the bad managers, where they can see an issue and change it. But last point, what got to me a bit was at the end, Dean Smith said it wasn't the system that was to blame, when I think anyone watching that game could clearly see that it was the system. Arsenal had acres of space in midfield. And I'm concerned now going forward because I don't know what to expect now. Like 1 week we could be brilliant, like we were against Chelsea, like we were against United, and then the week after we could be poor, like we were against Spurs and Arsenal. So it'd be interesting to see what he does this week against West Ham, which is a very difficult game because they're such a well-organised team. But I think if it gets to Christmas and we're struggling to pick up points, there are going to be questions asked because he's been given a lot of money by the owners. And for us to be on 10 points after 9 games isn't acceptable.
Yeah, and he's been given a lot of good signings as well. Obviously, been a bit unfortunate with some of the injuries, but we're going to be talking more about the Villa system and how potentially them changing back to the 4-back is going to, offer you more options in FPL in the Gameweek 10 preview show. But just the last thing on the Arsenal Villa game, really, I want to say is I was so surprised with the midfield to lose to Arsenal. Yes, they got a midfield, but I rate this Villa midfield very highly, especially John McGinn. And it's just a bit unfortunate for Villa. That's 3 on the back, but for Arsenal, they look in great form. And, I don't know how good they actually are, but they're picking up results, which is the most important thing. It's going to give the club a lot of confidence and, sticking with Arteta a bit longer at least. And he seems to be doing well, Danny.
Yeah, I think maybe we don't need, as a Villa perspective, we don't need to be looking at this as this bad a result, because it was actually that Arsenal were actually really good and they deserved the plaudits, and they didn't allow Villa any time or anything to do anything with the ball. And just one thing to add, I was just so thoroughly entertained when Leon Bailey did come on off the bench in the second half. I thought he was so exciting to watch, like one of the most exciting players I've seen, really, like that sort of Saint Maximin sort of player that gets you off your seat. So I really enjoyed watching him, and I think Rod it's not the end of the world for Villa. Yeah, I think, it's only been 3 losses on the bounce. I think things could improve still.
Yeah, they certainly can. But let's get on to somewhere where it doesn't look like things are going to improve. It was the early kickoff on the Saturday. Norwich got fucking battered. No surprise. It was about who you wanted in this Chelsea game. I couldn't decide. I didn't pick anyone up. Probably should have. Danny, How bad are Norwich?
Well, based on this start, they've got to be in that sort of conversation for worst Premier League side ever. Up there with that Derby County team of 2008. Because I think they've got 1 point. How many draws have they got? I swear they've got one draw and it's all losses. It's just awful. And the one thing you would say about Chelsea is with missing their big 2 goal scorers, they still managed to score 7 goals, which kind of shows that they have goal scorers all across the team in all different positions. So it just kind of shows how good Chelsea are and how bad Norwich are.
Yeah, and just like there's been talks of Premier League clubs coming together and talking about the Newcastle situation. Is there any chance we can have a meeting and just relegate Norwich, West Brom, all the yo-yo clubs straight to League One so we don't have to see them for a couple of years? Because Norwich, they need to change something, because it's okay going, they come up, they play their style. I actually like the fact that they do play their style, but it's not working. You got the likes of Grant Hanley in the team, who they were praising on BT Sport at the time, going, if everyone played like Grant Hanley, it wouldn't be that bad. Grant Hanley was at fault for at least a couple of those goals, man. He was miles out of position. The team isn't good enough. I don't think the manager's the right pick. Yeah, he's a good manager to get you out of the Championship, but he's not proven anything in the Premier League other than his team will get relegated. I think there needs to be a big change at Norwich, because they're coming up and they're not looking at themselves as a team who's going to get out of the relegation places. They come up and they accept relegation immediately, it seems like. And I don't like that. I want to see a bit more fight in the team, Even I thought West Brom did a better job of it last year, and I'm not a big fan of them, to be honest. Rod, how did you see this game?
I think, like you said with Norwich, they're just such a poor club. And when you sell your best player as soon as you get promoted, there's just no ambition there. And I've just had a look, and the majority share owners are Delia Smith and her husband, and they're worth a combined total of 23 million. So when you've got no money, especially in the league like the Premier League, you're setting yourself up to fail. And we know Chelsea struggle scoring. They haven't really got a striker at the moment. And they put 7 past Norwich, and it just looked easy and lackluster from our performance from Norwich. And they're on 2 points at the moment, and we're a quarter of the way through the season. So they could beat Derby's score. But I don't know. They're even though they are only 5 points at the bottom with Leeds and 17th on 7, for me they are down, because they just have no quality in that side, and they just look like a poor outfit.
You can't see where them points are actually going to come from, because I was actually thinking, are they going to get any points this season? Obviously they got the draw against Burnley, but they are lacking so much. I don't think the system suits them either, going to the 3 at the back.
They do have Leeds this week, and that's essentially a 6-pointer 10 games in.
Yeah, but you just know that Leeds have... Even Leeds, I question Leeds over how the quality of their team isn't at the standard of the football they want to play. So they struggle because they're trying to play this really expansive, end-to-end style, but the quality of their players aren't good enough to play it. And you already know the quality of the Leeds team is miles better than this Norwich team. I can see them getting a battering again. But let's move on. Palace Newcastle is a 1-1 draw. I was actually a bit surprised that Palace didn't get this one. Benteke looked on form. He could have had at least a hat-trick in this one. His late winner was disallowed after there was a foul on a player being pulled in the box from the corner. I think it's actually a really disappointing result for Palace, who have really shown great form of late under Patrick Vieira. Rod, do you see Newcastle really struggling coming up to this January window? Obviously, they still haven't got their manager in yet, and they still have this squad which is definitely lacking compared to other Premier League outfits. Are they in question of being in a relegation fight this season? Obviously, they got the money coming in, but they're not going to be able to strengthen that squad until January.
I hope so. I'm not a fan of Newcastle, and especially with this money that's coming in from an awful place, I will happily see them struggle all the way till game week 38. And I thought Palace were completely unlucky, like you just said, in their game. against Newcastle, and Palace probably should have come away with a win. And yeah, they haven't got a manager at the moment, but apparently talks with Fonseca at the advanced stages, and he's going to come in. But it's I understand they're planning for the future, but the squad they have right now, I think it's a bit pointless bringing in a manager like Fonseca, because he's not going to be able to do anything with it. And it's an awful squad. And
yeah,
they are in a relegation battle, and January it is still a couple of months away, and at that point they could be even worse in it. And who's going to want to go there unless you are simply in football for the money, which a lot of people are? But it's not looking great for them, to be completely honest.
Yeah, and Palace were in poor form in front of goal, but listen to some of these stats, right? So Palace only had 3 shots on target to Newcastle's 2, but they had 15 efforts on goal compared to Newcastle's 6. They had 75% possession of possession, sorry. They had 865 touches to Newcastle's 420, and they outpassed Newcastle 665 passes to 214. They absolutely dominated Newcastle. And in terms of Palace, Danny, you were quite negative at the start of the season. Obviously, we've gone and said you are not a Vieira slanderer anymore. But how, impressed are you with this Palace squad?
Very, very impressed. Yeah, I have transitioned from the Vieira slander to the Vieira praise.
Lover.
Yeah, lover.
Vieira lover, baby.
I wouldn't say I love him. Yeah, I think he has a lot to prove. It's still the early season, but I think Palace might be one of the most unlucky sides in the Premier League so far. I feel like they've been quite unlucky with a lot of sort of things going against them. They've should have won a lot more games than they have, in my opinion, based on performance and chances. And I think you said that Benteke had a great game. The thing is, for me, he had so many chances. It seemed like that he should have scored a hat trick.
Did I say he had a great game? Well, he looked better than he normally does, let's say.
Yeah, which, to be fair, that's pretty good for Benteke based off his recent standards. I say, he's just not the man to be for Palace.
He's not Benteke 2013 levels, is he?
Benteke 2013 levels would have at least scored a hat trick in that game, in my opinion. But yeah, Palace, I think that was an unlucky result, but they don't have to worry about relegation at all this year. They're looking very good. Vieira is slowly improving. I admit I was wrong, okay, Jack? Do you want to hear it? I was wrong.
I just want you to say that you love Patrick Vieira, man. That's all I want to hear. Anyway, moving on. This was one of the best games of the weekend for me. Everton against Watford, Rod. Such a good game. And after I think all Watford's, I think they scored 4 or something in, they scored after 78, from the 78th minute on, they scored 4 goals. So, yeah, brilliant game for Watford. The Tinker Man strikes back, I said, Rod. Obviously, there's a lot of questions over him coming into Watford, especially after the defeat and the shocking performance against Liverpool. I think it looks a bit better after the United game, to be honest. But, brilliant game for them. What did you see in this one?
Come off the hour, come off the king, where it was an interesting result, to say the least, because I don't think anyone was expecting that Watford could score 5 goals away to Everton. And it came in the manner of Josh King hat-trick, a Kutska and Dennis goal, where this could kickstart their season now, and it could rally the troops, and they're a bit less focused on Ben Foster's recording and more on the pitch. So I like Watford as a team, but I wouldn't mind seeing them go down again.
Oh, man. Fuck you, Rod, man. The Tinker Man's come in and you want him to get relegated already. Now, I think they've got a really likeable squad. I think the fact that Ben Foster has done his YouTube channels, I think it's brought a lot of tension to the squad in terms of, you've got to know the players more as people, and I think it's a good job. And I think people hating on him, but I think he's brought a lot of fans to Watford in general. I think they've become a more well-known team through him doing the YouTube channel, and definitely, like I said, a more likeable team. And in terms of the Tinkerman coming back, I think this is a great result for him. The unity in the squad, they really played hard in this game. And Josh King, the man who was, really overlooked at Everton, but he's come back to Goodison Park and he's really hit him where it hurts. Go on, Rod. What do you want to say?
Touching back on this game, well, I didn't realise until I've just checked the table now that win puts Watford on 10 points, and they are level on points with Villa now. So that kind of puts things into perspective a little bit with the irrationality in sacking Cisco and bringing him when in actual fact they weren't doing poorly at all.
They're one win off where they are now, yeah. Let's move on anyway to the next game. I think I have the Leeds Wolves game, Rod.
I thought this was going to be a goal fest, and Leeds managed to salvage a point at the end of the 90th minute due to a penalty, which it was a questionable penalty, but I don't know. So I'm always going to be a bit biased. But Chan Huang scoring again. He is on a hot bout of form, and him and Jimenez up front are definitely a dangerous partnership. And looking at the stats, both teams had 4 shots on target, with Leeds slightly dominating possession as you would expect at home. But seeing Leeds not get 3 points is always nice. But yeah, it's 1-1, probably a fair result.
Yeah, I'd say so, Rod. But I think Wolves will be disappointed. Obviously, not many Leeds aren't in great form. Let's say that anyway, and to lose all 3 at the final seconds of the game would be very disappointing. I will be touching on Huang Hee-chan in the Gameweek 10 preview a bit more because of potential transfer into my team. But I just want to say, since coming in, Wolves were struggling to score at the start of the season, but since coming in, he scored quite a few, and he's looking like a very tasty option for FPL. Southampton 2, Burnley 2. Rod, did you see any of this game?
I did, and a goal from our main man, Livramento, is always nice. And it was quite an exciting game. And of course, Broja scores again. That's 2-2 for him now. I think Armstrong is going to definitely be trying to fight for his place in training now, because Broja has shown what he's all about. And
yeah, he looks quality.
Maxwell Cornet with a double as well. It was an interesting game, and I didn't predict there'll be 4 goals. I thought it'd be maybe a 1-0 or a 0-0, but I think it's not a bad result for Burnley at all. That puts them onto 4 points, scoring 2 away from home and getting a draw against a well-organised Southampton team is always nice.
Yeah, and Southampton, I thought they were really good in this game, to be fair. I think, how are we saying it? Broja? Yeah, I think he looks... I think he looks really decent up top. He's built quite well for the Premier League. I'd say he looks like he can handle the physicality, but he's got a little bit about him. I think sometimes he looks a little bit greedy, but other than that, I'd say he looks class. But the man I want to talk about is Tino Livramento. What a difference, Rod. You changed the M to an N, and all of a sudden you're a quality Premier League player. Unlucky Timo. And thankfully, Livramento, he's been quality this season so far. I think he's had 3 clean sheets, and in terms of fantasy, you couldn't really ask for a better cheap option to have on your bench or come into your starting 11. The next game I want to talk about anyway, boys, is the Brighton City game. I'll start off with this one. I just want to say, for a 4-1 City win, that might be the most fake way of how a game went, in my opinion. Misleading, yeah, that's how you say it, Danny. My English is obviously my second language, Russian first, Rod. But I just want to say, Brighton, I keep hyping them up, and it's mainly because of Graham Potter. I think he's such a brilliant manager. I think, honestly, I think he could be. I think Spurs should have got him. I think he's fucking brilliant, to be fair. And what he does with that Brighton squad, look at the strength of the squad in general. It's not the strongest team in the Premier League, but he has them playing a very unique style, and very unlucky in that second half. They could have brought it back to 3-3, to be fair. Obviously, they had a bit of a mare in the first half. City took their foot off the gas pedal, but they really applied a lot of pressure in that second half, and I they'd actually deserve something from the game, and maybe they did take something from the game with pride, because they prove that they are the real deal this year, Rod.
Actually, I didn't watch this game live, but I did manage to catch up on the highlights. And looking at the XG, so it had an XG of 3.27 compared to Brighton's 1.35. So obviously, if you hadn't watched a game like I hadn't watched, you would have thought it was an absolute rout from City. But after what you've just said, it was Brighton have given a good account of themselves. And for me, they've got an average squad. So what Potter's doing with this clearly shows what he has as a manager. And I think last year Brighton were towards the relegation places, but I think this year they'll be able to consolidate their place in mid-table.
Yeah, I obviously, like, City were the much better team in the first half. They kind of were able to cut through Brighton quite easily, especially on the counter-attack as well. The one goal with where Grealish squared it to Foden. I think it was an own goal in the end, but the counter-attack was beautiful from City. But I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't be surprised if Brighton can finish within the top 7 teams in the Premier League. I think they've started really well, and Graham Potter's a great manager, so I wouldn't be surprised with that. We'll move to Sunday. The game I didn't watch live, but I caught the highlights of not too long ago, actually. I think it might have been this morning. Brentford against Leicester, Rod. Leicester just never say die attitude in this game, I'd say. They played really well, and to get a win over Brentford, I think that's it's a really pleasing result for them, I'll say, because Brentford have looked like a really challenging team to play recently.
Oh yeah, I remember watching the start of the game, and then obviously I've watched the highlights, and I think it was unlucky for Tony to be judged offside, or it could have been the fullback who crossed it in who was judged offside for his goal. And in a game where Tielemans scores, it's going to be an absolute banger, and what a goal it was. But yeah, Brentford were at home, and you would expect that they would be able to hopefully get the result. But like you said, they never die, say whatever.
Never die, say.
From Leicester was clear in this game, and to get a 2-1 result away from home is brilliant. And unfortunately, Vardy did come off injured with a very fit and raring to go Patson Daka coming on to get an assist. So there is definitely going to be a lot of competition for places now.
Yeah, but back-for-back wins for Leicester, starting to show a bit of form. I think that'll do really well, to be honest. Confidence going forward. Didn't start off the best this season, but looking like they could start to turn it around now. We move to the West Ham Spurs game. Rod, you surely saw the West Ham Spurs game.
I did. And this was a game in which I had Antonio, so I was looking for an Antonio goal, and the Antonio goal did materialise.
He delivered.
I thought that I haven't rated Spurs at all this year. I think they've been poor, and they were completely poor today. They scored an XG of 0. Or not today, on the weekend. They scored an XG of 0.65, with West Ham getting 1.68, and it kind of says it all. Where last week when Kane got his goal, we thought, is he back? Clearly he's not back, and West Ham are a very well organised team, and Declan Rice in midfield is a brilliant player. So I think you could have probably forecasted this result with a West Ham win, but it kind of epitomises Spurs this year, where going forward they lack a lot, and I'm not sure how well they're actually going to do this year.
Yeah, in terms of the Hammers, I thought their front line just played really well. The likes of Ben Rama, Fornals, and the lad from our end of the woods, Rod, Jared Bowen. I don't think he's reached his full potential yet either. I think he's not the quickest player, he's not the strongest player, he's not the best technically, but the thing he does seem to have is just great. 6 out of 10 every game. He puts in a really good shift, and he's been putting in he's really good form at the moment for West Ham. And I've got Ben Rama in my fantasy team. I thought he played really well as well. But Antonio is a menace this year. We're waiting for one of those hamstrings to go, Rod, but at the moment it doesn't look like it's going to happen. And he could be up there. You could be looking at least 16 goals this year for Antonio if he can stay fit.
Huge player for West Ham, and like you said, if his hamstrings manage if they do last the length of the season, he is going to be up there with the goals. And if they can balance his game time with him potentially playing a small part in Europe, more in the Premier League, then he's going to be a big player for them this year, like he already has been. So it was always nice for him to get a goal, put us up the rankings in fantasy, and with Villa playing this week, which we'll get on to. And yeah, West Ham, they are looking like a brilliant outfit once again.
Yeah, Moisey getting it done. Let's talk about his ex-team, Manchester United. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he's lost the wheel rod. It looks like the bus is completely burnt out. 5-0 Liverpool. I want to get Danny's take on this game first. Danny, what did you think of it?
I think it is the sackable offence, really. It's a sackable offence. He should have been sacked after this game. It was a pathetic performance, really. A lifeless performance, an embarrassing performance. Because they scored so early and they scored so many so early, I went through all of the stages of grief and anger. By the end of the game, I feel more, not embarrassed, not angry, but embarrassed. It's just embarrassing losing 5-0 to Liverpool at home. It's just embarrassing. I know Liverpool are great and Salah is incredible at the moment, but it's just embarrassing. We're Manchester United 0-5 at home. It should have been more as well. I don't know why Liverpool didn't go for the kill. They could have really made one of the most shocking results in history if they went for it after Pogba got sent off. But the game kind of fizzled out, thankfully, and it didn't get any worse. But it's so embarrassing. Go on, Jack. I know you got. Go on.
I think the Pogba red card actually helped United, because then Ollie was like, okay, let's fully park the bus now. But before that, after that, let's just say after the Pogba red card, it was more of a fact that Liverpool had the ball. United didn't really have to be on the pitch, to be honest. They were just watching Liverpool. Nothing else happened. Like you said, going through all the stages of grief, I think that's a really good analogy for this, because at the end of the game, I wasn't really mad. I was just kind of like, I don't know how to put it. It was like, I felt lifeless, to be honest. It was one of the strangest games I've ever watched. And, you do start off angry, but it starts to become a bit of a joke. If you don't laugh, you're going to bloody cry, because it was absolutely disgusting. To have your fans show up to the ground, pay all that money to come watch you, and to put in a performance like that, it's absolutely disgusting. In terms of Ollie, I've been on the Ollie out train now for a good couple months, I'd probably say. And it's just such a shame, because every hour he stays at this club is he's tarnishing his legacy. I think he could have walked away just over a season ago now, and he would have just been loved so much, and he is loved so much still. And I do, he's a hero of the club. The 99 goal, all the times he's come off the bench and scored for United. And if he would have left, he would have been really regarded as a hero around United, even as a manager, because he was able to bring the squad together, get them out of the shit they were in, to be honest. But now it's gone to a stage where he's just digressing. He's doing the same things over and over again. Danny, what is the true meaning of insanity? Because playing Fred and McTominay, who I'm not blaming in this game, he does it every fucking weekend. It's an absolute shambles. The team is tactically not anything. I don't know what it is. We win games off individual brilliance. You never go, oh wow, that's United. They're doing the wing play. They're pressing and they're getting out to the wings, cross it in. Oh, they're playing tiki-taka football. Oh, they're just playing counter-attack, because everyone used to go, oh, their style plays counter-attack, but it's not. It's fuck all. It's just individual brilliance. It's either a long ball.
The game represents Ollie's whole tenure as Man United boss in terms of being an actual good manager. In a vacuum, the game represents, it's like a metaphor for Ollie at United. Number one, the starting 11 was completely wrong. Number two, the in-game management was completely wrong. And number three, the half-time management, he should have been like, right, they are completely blowing us away, right? We just need to shut up shop and just literally not let this get any more embarrassing than it already is. But what does he do? We look even more vulnerable after half-time. Pogba gets sent off. I don't really blame Pogba that much, really. It was a game where all of the players just lost their heads, which is another thing about all it. Number four, the players themselves are more personalities all chucked together, as you were saying earlier. Like, they're all individuals, and the brilliance is what has got Ollie through the United job up until this point. And the substitutions, poor again, really. It's just, it represents Ollie's whole time at United. And it's a shame, really, because, as you said, he did steady the ship after Mourinho, but it's time to go, in the great words of Claude.
A couple of things just before I head it to Rod and we end the show. I just want to say, in terms of Liverpool, they weren't that good. They had, their lineup wasn't even that good. They was missing Fabinho, and they were missing Mane, who was on the bench, and they didn't have to be good because United let them play. The one other thing I want to say is the only time I think I was ever happy in the game was when Ronaldo was kicking the shit out of Curtis James. That was my favourite moment of this game. And I'm going to give it to Rod as neutral in this game. How did you see it, and any thoughts going forward?
Exactly what you just said in terms of Liverpool were not even that good. That it just seemed like every attack was going to lead to a goal. And I think Gary Neville mentioned it. For some reason, you adopted some sort of weird press where individuals go, leaving huge spaces behind them, and Liverpool are a good enough team to play around it. And Greenwood would press, and then Wan-Bissaka would go
that
a few
was the
seconds.
second goal, wasn't it? Yeah.
And it would just create so much space, and you haven't got to be a brilliant player to be like, okay, I can pass around this. And like you said, I thought you were shambolic, and
I've never seen a performance worse.
It was concerning because these are your biggest rivals, and they played you in your own patch, and you were nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, and just one last thing on G-Nev. He's getting a lot of backlash online, and he's like, why do you want me to say the manager's got to go? No one's telling him to say Ollie out, right? Only thing people have ever said to G-Nev is be honest and say, he's not doing well. He has never said that Ollie did the wrong thing in like starting McTominay and Fred, anything like that. And I didn't care if he says Ollie out, Ollie in. I don't give a fuck because he's his friend. But he's going online, and you've got the likes of Gary Lineker supporting him, while people saying because he won't get say the manager should leave. I don't give a fuck if you say the manager leaves or not. Just tell the fucking truth, because you tell the truth of everyone else about, the manager's not doing a good job. He's playing the wrong style of play. He's not getting to the players' heads how to do this and that. But with Ollie, it's a different story. Go on, Rod.
Like you said, that is biased towards Ollie from Gary Neville, and he should just call him out when he's wrong. But just one final stat before we finish the show, and Mo Salah in that game had an XG of 1.96. Manchester United had an XG of 1.37.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And he actually scored more goals than Donny van de Beek has minutes in the Premier League this year, which is crazy. But we'll end on that note anyway, guys. It's been a good show. We're going to record the preview for Game Week 5, where we'll be talking through our Fantasy League changes and the fixtures coming up. Do Aston Villa need to change their formation? We'll be talking about that. Thanks, boys, for joining me once again. If you have enjoyed the show, please leave a like and comment below. And if you have been watching the content, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It means more to us than you know. Thank you, boys, for joining me.